CNN brings you the world at 2000, hour by hour, moment by moment, as a new century and a new millennium unfold. We'll bring you the first moment of the new millennium from Kiribati in the Pacific, and then we'll follow midnight around the world, from Auckland, New Zealand, to the South Pole, to the Fiji Islands, Australia, Tokyo, Beijing, New Delhi, Red Square, the Egyptian pyramids, Jerusalem, Johannesburg, Rome, Paris, Lagos, Nigeria, Rio de Janeiro, and across the United States, from Times Square to Chicago, across the Midwest and the South, to Texas, Los Angeles, Honolulu, with more than 50 CNN correspondents, including Wolf Blitzer, Christian Amanpour, Jim Moret, Brent Sadler, Jim Bitterman, Charlene Hunter-Gault, Rebecca McKinnon, Fred Hickman, Candy Crowley, John King. As the clock strikes midnight around the world, we'll be there to bring you the celebrations and the spectacles. Join CNN to ring in the new year, the new century, and the new millennium. Spend New Year 2000 with the world.
A Calgary company hopes its new computer card will help fight the so-called Y2K problem.
The company believes it has the only quick fix for the millennium bug. The bug will cause a lot of people a lot of trouble if they don't protect their computers when we reach the year 2000. Najma Yaksan has more in our continuing look at the Y2K problem.
Take a look at what happens to the lines of code when you simulate the rollover to the year 2000 on this personal computer.
The clock rolled over to 00, but the century didn't change. And that's simply because the clock circuit is not capable of doing that. This is the test software that will tell you what the extent of the problem is in the computer. And this
Ignition sequence start. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. This is ABC News on emergency broadcast. We're coming to you live from our backup studio. It's just past midnight here, and we're not entirely sure what's going on right now. The power has gone out across the entire country. This is nationwide, folks. Every major city, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, it's all gone dark. We've been receiving reports that thousands of people are leaving Millennium celebration sites in a hurry, trying to make sense of this blackout. The government hasn't released a formal statement yet, but we've been told to stay calm and stay where you are if you can. Public transport systems are down. There's no trains, no trams running at this time, and the flights have been suspended from major airports. If you're hearing this, you're one of the few still able to listen in. Radios seem to be our only working lifeline right now.
日本時間午後11時55分、広範なシステム故障により、全国の原子力発電所で重大な故障が報告された。この誤動作は、複数の原子力安全システムが緊急停止モードに入る原因となったバグに関連しているようです。しかし、いくつかの原子炉は現在不安定であり、メルトダウンの危険が差し迫っている。日本時間午後11時55分、広範なシステム故障により、全国の原子力発電所で重大な故障が報告された。この
West Bank, town of Bethlehem, the site of the Nativity of Jesus, according to the Gospels. Some people actually hold that he was born in Nazareth.
You're tuned in to Collie Israel, bringing you live coverage of the New Year celebrations across the country, but we're just receiving an urgent update from the military. We have unconfirmed reports that, just minutes after midnight, air defense systems have been activated across parts of the country. Initial reports suggest multiple inbound threats have been detected, particularly in the direction of Bethlehem and areas near the northern border. Officials have not yet confirmed whether these are false alarms or a genuine security event, but residents in Haifa and northern settlements have reported hearing sirens. But just now we are receiving word that the Israeli Air Force has scrambled aircraft in response to what was initially believed to be an aerial intrusion. This is happening over multiple regions with a focus on areas bordering Lebanon and Syria. We cannot confirm if this is an actual attack or a technical failure, but military movements are underway. If you are outside, please seek shelter immediately.
Technically, citizens of Russia, please listen carefully to this official statement from the government of the Russian Federation. Earlier this morning, anomalies within our national defense infrastructure resulted in a temporary loss of communication with one of our military storage sites in the Euro region. While the situation remains under full investigation, preliminary reports indicate that a discrepancy has been identified. in the inventory of strategic assets. At this time, numerous warheads from our nuclear arsenal have not yet been accounted for. Our top military and security officials are actively working to verify their status and location. There is no indication of an external breach or unauthorized access, and all strategic protocols remain intact. As a precaution, heightened security measures have been enacted nationwide, and the Russian armed forces are operating at elevated readiness to ensure the continued safety of our nation.
Good evening, and welcome to this special BBC News report. In just 10 minutes, the United Kingdom will enter the year 2000. But as celebrations continue across the nation, the world is already descending into crisis. The so-called Y2K bug, once dismissed by some as exaggerated paranoia, is now proving to be a catastrophe unfolding in real time. We begin with the latest developments across the globe. The first major economy to welcome the new millennium, Australia, has been plunged into total blackout. Power grids across the country have collapsed, leaving over 18 million people without electricity. Perhaps the most alarming development so far, 5 nuclear reactors across Japan have suffered catastrophic failures due to system malfunctions. Emergency shutdown protocols failed to activate, leading to uncontrolled meltdowns. Widespread evacuations are now underway, with fears of severe radiation exposure. A different kind of catastrophe is unfolding in China, where the Shanghai Stock Exchange has been forced to suspend operations after major transaction errors brought financial markets to a standstill. Millions of citizens have been locked out of their bank accounts, unable to access their funds. Panic is spreading, with reports of large crowds gathering outside major banks, demanding answers. In a rapidly escalating situation, North Korea has reportedly moved troops to the demilitarized zone, following a continent-wide blackout affecting parts of South Korea and Japan. Military officials fear a serious miscalculation could trigger open conflict on the peninsula. The South Korean government has placed its forces on high alert. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, what started as a suspected false alarm has now escalated into a full-blown military conflict. Israeli forces are engaged in heavy clashes with Hezbollah militants and Syrian forces along the Lebanese border. Artillery exchanges and airstrikes have been reported, with fears that the situation could spiral further out of control. Regional leaders are calling for de-escalation, but at this hour, there is no sign of either side backing down. Now to perhaps the most concerning development of all. Intelligence reports indicate that Russia has lost track of multiple nuclear warheads, following widespread system failures at key military installations. Officials in Moscow insist they have control of their arsenal, but sources suggest otherwise. If true, the implications are beyond comprehension. The Kremlin remains tight-lipped. But behind the scenes, world leaders are scrambling to assess the risk. As the world plunges into crisis, all eyes now turn westward. Here in the United Kingdom, Millennium celebrations continue, but there is growing unease over what may come. Governments across Europe and North America are on high alert, bracing for potential disruptions as the clock strikes midnight. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, US President Bill Clinton is expected to address the nation shortly, speaking on both the escalating conflict in the Middle East and the Russian nuclear crisis. He is also expected to discuss emergency preparations as the Western world braces for the full impact of the Y2K bug. We'll now head to live pictures in London to the Millennium Countdown celebration led by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth.
can hear this, we are experiencing an unprecedented technical failure across our systems. At this moment, we cannot verify the nature of this disruption, but we urge all viewers to remain calm, and we have been instructed to await further directives. Stand by.
Feliz 2000. Happy New Year. The fireworks have started. It's officially the third or new millennium here in Brazil. And if you think this could be the Latin century, you're absolutely right. The economy is booming. People are very optimistic, and you probably can't even hear me.
Oh, yes, I can, Bill. Thanks very much. Let's just watch and listen to their countdown.
At this time, multiple critical security failures have been reported across the nation. Government buildings, including Palacio do Planalto and Palacio da Alvorada, have been overrun by unauthorized groups. The situation in Rio de Janeiro, particularly in Copacabana and surrounding areas, has deteriorated. Due to an ongoing communications failure within military and law enforcement networks, security forces are unable to respond effectively. We urge all residents to return to their homes immediately and avoid public spaces until further notice. Authorities are working to restore order, but at this moment we do not have full situational awareness. If you are in an area experiencing unrest or violence, seek immediate shelter. Stay indoors, stay calm. Await further updates.
Good evening. We interrupt regular programming with breaking news from the nation's capital. Multiple sources within the Pentagon have confirmed that a severe systems disruption is affecting U.S. military communications. While officials stress there is no immediate threat, we are hearing reports that key defense installations, including NORAD, are experiencing data outages and erroneous missile warnings. We are working to verify details at this moment. In New York City, air traffic control has reportedly lost communication with multiple flights. We are also monitoring unconfirmed reports that the Federal Reserve's computer network is experiencing widespread errors affecting transactions nationwide. We now go live to New York and Washington, D.C. as the East Coast welcomes the new millennium.
Washington, D.C., New York City, and the countdown on the East Coast is underway. A matter of seconds, less than 45 seconds now, as we go down to approaching 30 seconds before the new millennium on the east coast of the United States.
The fabled ball, now a Waterford crystal creation, is about to drop in Times Square. We will be there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are struggling to process the sheer volume of reports coming in. It is now 6 minutes past midnight here on the East Coast, and we are witnessing what can only be described as an unprecedented situation unfolding in real time. We are just receiving word that Washington, D.C., yes, Washington, D.C., is experiencing major disruptions. If you take a look at our live feed, you can see this for yourself. The White House lights have just gone out. This is now the most direct confirmation yet that the year 2000 computer failures are affecting critical infrastructure, the Capitol building, federal agencies. We are getting word that many government systems are going offline or are unresponsive. We are now hearing that CNN itself is struggling to maintain communication with our international correspondents. Our satellite feeds are fluctuating. We have lost direct contact with our teams in London, Berlin, and Tokyo. This is not just a local or regional failure. This is something bigger. I want to bring in our senior correspondent, Angelo, who is in Washington, D.C.
John, I cannot stress enough how surreal this moment is. Thousands of people are still gathered here in Washington, D.C., completely unaware that the federal government may have just gone dark. Just moments ago, we saw President Clinton's motorcade abruptly leave the venue. We don't know where he is being taken, but the departure was unplanned. We are hearing conflicting reports from across the East Coast. Some areas are experiencing blackouts, others are still fully operational. In New York City, Times Square remains lit up, but we are getting unconfirmed reports of disruptions at major transit hubs, possibly affecting Amtrak and JFK Airport. This is all happening as we speak, and frankly, we don't know the full scale of it yet. John, I'm getting word that some government buildings here in DC are experiencing electronic access failures. Security systems locking up, keycard access not working. This could be affecting emergency response law enforcement. We are still trying to confirm, but right now we are witnessing what appears to be a cascading breakdown of federal systems. This is beyond what anyone expected.
Jamie, stay safe. We'll keep checking back with you. We are now seeing an unprecedented situation. Washington, D.C., the seat of American government, may be in the middle of a total communications failure. We're going to keep monitoring this, but I have to say, if this is what's happening just minutes into the year 2000, we don't know what the rest of the night will bring.
This is an emergency action notification from the U.S. government. The following message is being broadcast to inform the nation of a critical and ongoing crisis. At 12:05 a.m., the eastern United States has begun experiencing the first direct impacts of the year 2000 computer malfunction, known as the Y2K bug. Critical systems across the eastern seaboard, including emergency alert systems, power grids, and financial networks, have been severely disrupted. These failures are causing widespread communication breakdowns, with government operations, military, and law enforcement unable to operate. Air traffic control systems in major metropolitan areas are no longer responsive. Military and civilian flights have been grounded, and there are reports of conflicting flight path data causing confusion across the region. Power outages have been reported in multiple states, with no current timeline for restoration. Emergency response teams are unable to mobilize effectively due to the failure of communication networks. Emergency services are asking citizens to remain indoors and avoid using mobile devices to reduce strain on remaining functional systems. In Washington, D.C., critical government buildings have lost power, and the White House is reportedly without full communications. The government urges all citizens in affected areas to stay inside their homes. Please avoid all travel and remain alert for further instructions. This is an ongoing situation. We will continue to provide updates as soon as information becomes available. This is a national emergency. Remain indoors. More instructions will follow. Stay tuned for further emergency broadcasts.
Good evening, or rather, good morning if you're just joining us. We are now over an hour into the new millennium on the East Coast, where widespread system failures have thrown critical infrastructure into chaos. Now, with the year 2000 rolling further westward, the American Midwest, considered by many as the backbone of the nation, is now bracing for its own moment of reckoning. We have confirmation that major freight and passenger rail networks have suffered widespread control failures. Amtrak services across Illinois, Missouri, and Minnesota have halted mid-route as automated switching systems have gone dark. Freight trains carrying hazardous materials are unaccounted for, leaving emergency responders scrambling to assess potential threats. In Chicago, one of the nation's busiest air hubs, the situation at O'Hare is deteriorating. The FAA has been unable to reestablish full control over ground radar, leading to mounting fears that some flights may still be airborne with limited guidance. There are also unconfirmed reports of multiple near-miss incidents in the past hour alone. We are now receiving reports that multiple nuclear silos across the Midwest have entered a state of security lockdown. These silos, once managed by systems designed to withstand nearly any failure, have instead suffered a critical malfunction. Military personnel have been deployed to secure these facilities, but sources indicate that command overrides are, at this moment, not functioning as expected. We are working to get more details on the full scope of the impact. We are also being told that the National Guard has been put on high alert across multiple Midwestern states as law enforcement struggles to maintain order in areas affected by power and communication outages. This crisis is unfolding by the minute, and as the clock ticks down to midnight on the West Coast, we are left to ask, what happens next?
Midnight with the Millennium Fleet returns to the
residents within the western United States, this message is being transmitted by the authority of the federal government. If you are hearing this broadcast, you are among the last to receive official communication before full system degradation occurs beyond this region. The scope of this failure is unprecedented. Major power providers, including Pacific Gas and Electric, have reported critical failures in grid management. Uncontrolled fluctuations are triggering rolling blackouts across Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland. These outages are expected to worsen. Prepare immediately for prolonged power loss. Air travel disruptions are now reaching critical levels. Residents should be aware of possible aircraft distress events. Emergency channels have reported multiple commercial and private flights experiencing severe navigation and control failures. Remain indoors and avoid unnecessary travel. NORAD's Western Command is tracking multiple unidentified air traffic anomalies over the Pacific. No further details have been provided. There is no external military threat at this time, but situational awareness is advised. The U.S. Pacific Fleet stationed at Pearl Harbor has been completely unresponsive since 11:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Attempts to reach command have failed. The status of fleet operations remains unknown. Shelter in place. Preserve all remaining battery-operated communication devices. Be prepared for the loss of all remaining broadcast transmissions. This will be the final advisory unless systems are restored.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are struggling to stay on air. We are receiving multiple reports of we have just lost our direct line with Los Angeles. The city is reporting mass power failures, and multiple sources claim that emergency responders are completely overwhelmed. San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge has just, my God. We are receiving unconfirmed reports that an airliner has disappeared from radar near the Bay Area. Officials have...
Please stand by for a recorded message from the President of the United States.
My fellow Americans, if you are hearing this, it means this message got through. I'll keep it brief, because right now, we just don't know how long we have. We prepared for this. We put every effort into stopping it. But somewhere, something went wrong. Computer systems across the country, across the world are failing in ways we never expected. We've lost contact with many of our agencies, our cities, and our allies. We don't know what's happening out there, or even here. But I do know this, we are a strong nation. We have faced hardship before, and we will face this too. Right now, the best thing you can do is stay where you are, shelter in place. We need to hold on, stay calm, and wait until we can reestablish control. We are doing everything in our power to get communications back online. I don't know when I'll be able to speak to you again, but I want you to remember no matter what happens, we're Americans, and we do not fall. May God bless the United States of America.